Hello everybody, the Lawn Gnome is here, and no spiders are gonna make me tap dance.
Yeah, Hollywood, you know I love you more than what I should. Yeah, Hollywood, well kiss me good. Yeah, Hollywood, you know I love you more than what
I went to see The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Mark Webb's sequel to the reboot of the Spider-Man franchise, which was originally brought to the big screen way back in 2002 by Sam Raimi. When I reviewed Amazing Spider-Man way back when, that was one of the videos where I actually got the most negative comments because people said that you don't know Spider-Man, you don't really read the comic books, you really have no references, you have no right to say what you say. Granted, yes, I really was not an avid Spider-Man reader when I was younger, but I did know about his origins, I knew about his villains, and I did know about some of his well-known comic book stories. And I was maybe just not so ready for a reboot right away, because that was probably the main reason why I didn't give it such high regards, but when I went to see Amazing Spider-Man 2, I had seen what a lot of people and critics alike were saying, but I have to say that the sequel was quite good. Mark Webb did a phenomenal job, especially when it comes to the chemistry between cast members. That's one of the few things that I have seen Mark Webb do, especially in 500 Days of Summer, and when I actually did rewatch Amazing Spider-Man a few weeks before I went to see the sequel, yes, I did see a very good on-screen chemistry with the respective cast. And like the critics, I will agree that when it comes to the fact that Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone are in fact really dating, their on-screen chemistry is very free-flowing and very natural. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the stuff that actually took place on screen was in fact ad-libbed. One of the things that I was really excited to see was the villains that they had chosen, because there has been, even before the sequel came out, a lot of talk as to what this new Spider-Man franchise is going to be. I don't want to give too much away, but if you have been doing your research and keeping up with the Spider-Man news, you know what I'm talking about. It was a couple of subtle instances, a lot of foreshadowing, a little bit more based on what happened in the first movie to kind of make sense of it all, especially to people who were either new to Spider-Man or just trying to lure the Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst purists to say, hey, look, we're trying to make Spider-Man bigger and better. I also like the fact that they did bring the costume back to what it originally was back in 2002, so that was a big plus. I thought that the special effects and the action sequences were probably some of the best that I had ever seen in a Spider-Man movie before, and I also like the fact that there was a little bit more foreshadowing to where the story is going to go. I also loved that there was a lot of action that displayed Spider-Man in the Spider-Man costume, because as much as I love the Sam Raimi films minus the third installment, we really didn't get much Spider-Man action, more so in 2 than we did in 1, but we got a lot of action in the 2 Mark Webb directed Spider-Man films. I thought that the villains that they introduced in this movie were quite great. I loved Dane DeHaan. I knew that he was going to be something special. Some people may consider his acting in this film a little dull and bland, but I understood the way he acted on screen. It was really because of the fact that he was really depressed and really upset because of his situation, and when he, of course, we all know he was going to become the Green Goblin because we know his character's Harry Osborn, I will say that he truly blew Franco out of the water as far as his performance, and when he was Green Goblin and Harry Osborn, respectively, he really did a great job and complimented Andrew Garfield very well. Spider-Man comic book fans are really going to be happy with some of the things that they do see in this movie, and believe me, they are going to outweigh the whole thing that happened with Norman Osborn, because as Spider-Man comic book readers, we all know what really happened to Norman Osborn, and as fans of the first franchise, we all know who Norman Osborn was, so it was a little bit of a different take, but nonetheless, it was a very well put together movie. Another very positive thing about this film was the soundtrack. Hans Zimmer was the main composer, but Hans Zimmer, when it comes especially to comic book films, he's done the Christopher Nolan Batman films, and now the Zack Snyder Superman films, so when you need the epicness of a great score, you always pick Hans Zimmer, but it's a little different this time. This time he is now known as Hans Zimmer and the Magnificent Six, and that Magnificent Six includes some very well-known artists like Pharrell, as well as Junkie XL. It's a great blend of classical and electronic, and even a couple of rock elements thrown in. It makes the score so much bigger and so much more powerful. When each song is intertwined, especially with the action sequences, it just makes you so much more excited when you're watching what you're watching on screen. Now, the other thing that a lot of people didn't like was the fact that Jamie Foxx, who played Electro, Paul Giamatti, who plays Rhino, and of course Dane DeHaan, there were 3 villains, but certain villains got more screen time and others just seemed irrelevant. You know something? It worked. And the reason why it worked is just because of the fact that it's going to be a bigger story and a bigger picture as these anticipated sequels keep coming. The only thing that I'm hoping for is that when the 3rd installment, which has already been greenlit and it has a release date of 2016, I'm just hoping that when Mark Webb officially gives up the director's chair that they're going to put a good director in there to take his place, because this story really does have the potential to make us all forget about what happened at the very end of the Sam Raimi run. And I have to say, from where the original Amazing Spider-Man came from, I have to say that I am now officially a supporter of this franchise, and even though I feel that Amazing Spider-Man 2 is not perfect, it's still turned Amazing Spider-Man into a much bigger and better franchise. So, I am giving the Amazing Spider-Man 2 3 out of 4, and give me your thoughts on this film. I want to know what you guys thought, and I'm looking forward to posting another video very soon. I am the Law Unknown, and remember that actions speak louder than words.